Many thanks for joining us on News Now. I am Annetta Felix. Leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, and his wife Zinat has been granted leave to seek medical attention in India. The order was given by the Kaduna State High Court following an application by counsel to the defendant Femi Falana. El-Zakzaky and his wife are standing trial for charges relating to culpable homicide, unlawful assembly and disruption of public peace. Fidelia Aguncha tells us more.
Amid heavy security presence, vehicular and business activities were brought to a standstill as the Federal High Court in Kaduna ruled on an application filed by Ibrahim El-Zakzaky and his wife Zinat. After careful consideration, Justice Darius Kobo approved the defendant's request to seek medical treatment abroad. Counsel to the IMN leader explains why the court took the decision despite the objection of the prosecution.
A ruling came up today, and the Honorable Court, my Lord Justice Darius, graciously agreed with Mr. Femi Falana, SN, and the various medical reports that were attached to the applications. There were 8 different medical reports that showed clearly that the applicants are in dire need of urgent medical treatment abroad.
When
the
can
court
he
agreed with the applicants and granted the application as prayed. We were seeking, as submitted by Mr. Falana on the 29th of June, that the applicants required immediate, urgent interventional medical treatment abroad, specifically at the Mental Hospital, New Delhi, India. And the court agreed that the applicants Malam and his wife, should be allowed that immediate interventional medical treatments that were sought for, and that it should be immediate, but with the supervision of the state.
The lawyer also clarifies that the defendants have not been granted bail as reported by most media outlets.
It's not a bail application as has been wrongly reported in some news media. It was an application to save the life of the applicants, Malam Ibrahim El-Zakzaky and his wife.
Reacting to the ruling, counsel to the Kaduna State government, Darius Bayero, explains that the prosecution would study the judgment and decide whether or not to appeal it.
The court has ruled. It has heard us. It has heard the arguments of counsel, and it has ruled. We are bound by the court ruling of this honorable court. All the parties are bound by the ruling of the court. We'll go and sit down and read the ruling and explore whether there is need for us to appeal against the ruling or not. There is a window. It's a ruling of the court. We have a month within which to go through an appeal against this ruling.
While no time frame was given as to how long El-Zakzaky and his wife will stay in India, the court, however, ordered that the defendants be accompanied by officials of the Kaduna State government. It is also yet to be ascertained if the federal government will obey this court order or ignore it like it did the previous ones. Fidelia Aguncha, TV360, Kaduna.
The Nigerian police have stopped protesters in their tracks as they gathered at the National Stadium in Surulere in response to calls for a revolution by Omoyele Sowore. Over the weekend, operatives of the Department of State Services had arrested Sowore for threatening public peace with the announcement of protests, but his arrest didn't stop his supporters. Policemen were on ground at the National Stadium to keep the peace, but Abisola Adebayo reports that their reaction to the protesters was brutal.
This was the harsh treatment meted out to members of Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria by a combined team of police and military operatives. Their offense is an attempt to stage a protest which the government says will incite a revolution. With guns and batons, the protesters are violently dispersed with many arrested. Journalists who had gathered to report the planned protest were not spared. The police then explains why such measures were taken.
Their gathering is unlawful, and an unlawful gathering is supposed to be discharged. So we have to dislodge them because they don't have any permits. Nobody permitted for that gathering. And in as much as the gathering is unlawful, they have to be dislodged. That's why we dislodge them.
With their planned protest ruined, members of the group organized this press conference to express their displeasure.
a constituted protest within the confines of the law. When we got there, we were all assembled peacefully. The security agents came and said we should move away. We said no, we are citizens of this country, and Nigeria is a signatory to the Treaty of the Geneva Convention of the Fundamental Human Rights 1948 as amended. I said, so why must we? He said, okay, they gave us a place, we stood there peacefully, and I was able to talk to my fellow comrades, and we maintained orderliness. So my dismay and my flabbergastion, I saw a policeman in team came up. All manners of policemen and security were all there. There was no security that was there. If we had this type of security in Nigeria, and there is still insecurity, there is kidnapping, there is armed robbery, there is ritualism, there are all sorts of things, manner of social devices that does not favor the Nigerian ordinary masses, then there is a conspiracy somewhere within our government.
The group is also demanding the immediate release of their members and an unreserved apology from the federal government.
The battle continues. Yes. We are going to be announcing the next convergence of action to members of the press. And we are also, in conjunction with the Nigerian Bar Association, going to be pressing for the immediate release of members that have been arrested.
The failed march was to protest what the group described as bad governance in the country. They say despite the harsh treatment, they will continue to organize more protests.
Our democracy, which so many people paid supreme sacrifice to realize, cannot be turned to a plutocracy before our very eyes. The level of oppression, exploitation that the plutocrats under President Muhammadu Buhari is subjecting to Nigeria is better experienced than expressed. And that is the only one reason we join voices with the voice of all other Nigerians within the context of the core Coalition for Revolution to say that enough is enough.
They should release Omoyele Sowore, and we have freedom of speech in this country. To the Nigerian masses, do not fear. There is no struggle, there is no progress without struggle. Every one of you is tired of what is going on, and you have a right to peacefully come out and tell them the truth.
Over the weekend, leader of the protest, Omoyele Sowore, was arrested and detained by operatives of the Department of State Service, DSS. The secret police says the group crossed the line when they decided to spearhead a revolution against the government. Abisola Adebayo, TV360, Lagos.
Meanwhile, the SocioEconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has condemned the handling of the Revolution Now protest by security agencies. Reacting in a tweet, the group called for the immediate release of all members of the group who were arrested during the protest. It also threatened to take international legal action if the arrested persons continue to remain in custody. SERAP stressed that Nigerians have the right to exercise their constitutional right to peaceful protest without fear of being targeted. The umbrella wing of over 30 civil society organizations, Democracy Watch Africa, have condemned the Revolution Now protest by Omoyele Sowore. In a protest, convener of the group, Josephine Opara, has slammed Sowore for being unpatriotic and for attempting to overthrow the government. They also called out human rights group Amnesty International for allegedly working to destabilize Nigeria. Democracy Watch Africa urged the government to expel Amnesty, saying their presence in the country is causing more harm than good. Opara added that Nigeria is a sovereign nation that must rise to defend her unity.
It will indeed be a great shame on us as a people if we as Nigerians fall for the booby trap set for us by Amnesty International and their paymasters in Nigeria and other parts of the world towards ensuring that Nigeria does not experience peace and progress. Democracy Watch Africa is appalled by the temerity of Amnesty International to instigate the people against the government and wonders how the relevant authorities in Nigeria
allow such acts to fester unabated above the years. The likes of Amnesty International must be resisted with all of our strength in the true Nigerian spirit as stated in the national anthem and pledge.
He's aggrieved in any way. Do you know what the definition of revolution is? He wants to forcefully take over a legitimate government. So as a matter of fact, I agree in clear terms that he should be dealt with. There was even a place he said he was going to kill himself. So maybe the government is even acting in a very good capacity for him not to kill himself. So I am in support of his arrest, and I pray that Nigeria will not have any cause to break down. God bless you.
Meanwhile, civil rights group Amnesty International has charged the Nigerian government to probe the deaths of 3 Shiite members who reportedly died in police custody. In a statement released on Monday, Amnesty alleged that another 15 members of the sect, including minors, have been detained incommunicado for weeks. It says the members were among the dozens arrested in July after a protest by the IMN turned violent. Over a dozen people, including a senior police officer and a youth corps member, were killed in a protest in Abuja. The IMN members were protesting the continued detention of their leader, Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, who was today granted leave to travel abroad for medical treatment. President of the Middle Belt Forum, Boutros Pogu, has called for the proscription of herdsmen. This follows a series of attacks and clashes between herders and farmers in the region. Speaking at the Ethnic Nationalities Conference of the Middle Belt, Pogu accused herders of committing genocide on the Middle Belt people and hiding under the aegis of Mieti Allah Breeders Association. He also accused the federal government of attempting to change the narrative by describing them as bandits. The Middle Belt Forum chairman also rejected the Land Bill Act, saying it was a plot to take away ancestral land from Middle Beltons for government use. Stakeholders are calling on the federal government to improve on its audit process and reforms. Speaking at an Audit Reform Bill Advocacy Strategy meeting in Abuja, the lead director, Center for Social Justice, Eze Onyepere, said the country must tackle its audit challenge if they are to make headway in its anti-corruption war. Onyepere urged the government to sign the Federal Audit Service Commission bill into law. He also added that the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation should be strengthened.
This is an office that is not politicized. So if you are looking for who will give you the materials to do anti-corruption work, it's this office, because you have qualified accountants and auditors sit down dispassionately without politics and look at how money was spent. And after, they will raise an audit query and give the institution or person concerned an opportunity to respond. And when you respond, they come back again and look at it to see whether you have answered the queries they've raised, whether you've responded to the issues, and then they make a recommendation based on that. So I had expected that their reports will be the materials to be used by the EFCC, by the ICPC in prosecuting persons who have run foul of the laws. In terms of Naira and Kobo, look at the Auditor General's reports in previous years. You talk of money running into over 500, 600 billion that has not been brought into account. So if those monies are brought into account, we are discussing about serious amounts of money that is more than the budget of the Ministry of maybe Works, Power and Housing, which should be the biggest ministry. So it will help us plug the leaks, those leaking pipes of corruption. The Auditor General's report moved up to the Public Accounts Committee in the Senate and House, and their recommendations fully implemented. You could be talking about recovering not less than 100 to 200 billion naira annually, which you have gone to waste.
The thing about trying to get a bill passed is convincing those who are actually responsible for carrying that out. So in a sense, you have to rely on the experiences of the past, but also try and read the context in which you're doing advocacy. What are the issues they're concerned about? Are you able to explain those convincingly that the problem that you're proposing to solve with the bill, that when it's actually passed, it would solve those problems? So it's really taking a realistic reading of the context in which you're doing advocacy and looking for the most effective ways of convincing the members of the National Assembly first and then the President subsequently to share your perspective.
President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration will ensure better inclusion of all aspects of the society in the electoral process. The president made this known while declaring open the 6th ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commissions, ECONEC, General Assembly and Symposium in Abuja. He was represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. Buhari said that having passed the Disabilities Bill and the Not Too Young to Run Act, more policies on inclusivity are on the way. INEC Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu, who is the pioneering chairman of ECONEC's steering committee, is expected to hand over to a new steering committee chairman at the end of the symposium on Wednesday, 7th August 2019. On her part, Finda Koroma, the first female vice president of ECOWAS, called on youth, women and PWDs to become more active in politics. Also speaking, European Union head of mission to the ECOWAS, Ketril Carlson, commended President Buhari's assent to the disability and Not Too Young to Run bills.
We cannot allow the failure of the political process to destabilize our countries to the extent that regional military intervention becomes inevitable, as it is unfortunately still the case in the sub-region. With the successful conduct of parliamentary elections in Guinea-Bissau in March this year, the next big step is the presidential election. I urge ECONEC to continue to work with ECOWAS by engaging all stakeholders in the country for a successful presidential election scheduled for 24th of November 2019 that will restore stability and eventually facilitate the withdrawal of troops.
A critical issue for the future of ECONEC is funding. While we appreciate the support of ECOWAS and the development partners, we agreed last year that each member country shall pay the sum of $5,000 per annum to support the activities of the network. I am glad to report that many countries have fully paid their dues for 2 years.
Recent studies and current statistics affirm the underrepresentation of women and other marginalized groups at all levels of governance and particularly in political decision-making. While some countries are doing better than others, however, generally speaking, it appears that in spite of all the pleas for parity and inclusivity in political participation and in decision-making, ECOWAS member states are yet to sufficiently mobilize women, youth, and persons living with disability for inclusive participation in the electoral process and for equal representation.
It's about legitimacy and it's about providing that voice to all the people of our nation. Now, if that inclusivity is not provided, then we will undermine our democracy power. If we don't seek to have a full inclusive participation of these people in fundamentally, by the end of the day, we will undermine the very political platform that we have created with such a sacrifice by many key politicians.
Let's take a break now and we'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Corruption not in my country.
So, now, straight to business. Now, that case between State versus Femi Wale.
Femi Wale?
Yes.
Is he your son?
That's my heir apparent.
Did he actually kill the wife?
His juvenile delinquency, they must have taken some few bottles.
A man of 40. Juvenile delinquent?
7 years ago. Now, what do we do? I don't want him to go to jail.
We are very good friends. But for this, I cannot help you.
You know I was so nice to you in school. I took care of you.
I'll politely leave.
No, you can't leave. How much do you want me to pay?
Wale, this is not about money. It's about the law. Bribing a judge to subvert the cause of justice is corruption. Not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
You're welcome back. Let's now check in with Oyin Adekunle for the latest in business. Hello, Oyin.
Hi, Anita.
Please bring us up to date to the headlines in business today.
Well, electricity generation in the country has fallen below 2,500 megawatts amid low load demand by the distribution companies. Total output from the nation's 27 power plants dropped from 3,364 megawatts to 2,492 megawatts over the weekend. Meanwhile, the system operator put the nation's installed generation capacity at 12,910.40 megawatts, while the available capacity was pegged at 7,652.60 megawatts. Transmission wheeling capacity, on the other hand, currently stands at 8,100 megawatts, while the peak generation ever attained is at 5,375 megawatts. Nigeria generates most of its electricity from gas-fired power plants, while output from hydropower plants makes up about 30% of the total. The Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, has taken over 2 steel companies in Abuja and Cross River states. This followed the order of Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court, which mandated AMCON to take over all the assets of companies promoted by businessman Shen Yaozhang and retired General Idris Garba over indebtedness of over 3 billion naira. The assets which are now under AMCON include Baoyao Forchelex Iron and Steel Company Limited, Abuja, as well as Baoyang Huanshan Iron and Steel Company Limited, Calabar, belonging to the obligors. A statement by AMCON says the order also froze all accounts of the companies in any financial institution in the name or belonging to the defendants. The court order is coming days after Vice President Yemi Osinbajo set up a task force with a mandate to devise a strategy to recover the 5 trillion naira debt owed to AMCON. Oil prices fell on Monday on global growth concerns after U.S. President Donald Trump last week threatened China with more tariffs, which could limit crude demand from the world's 2 biggest buyers. Brent crude futures fell $1.29 to $60.60 a barrel, while U.S. crude futures fell 40 cents to $55.26 a barrel. Both crude benchmarks plummeted by more than 7% last Thursday to their lowest level in about 7 weeks after Trump's announcement, before recovering somewhat to leave Brent down 2.5% on the week and U.S. crude 1% lower. The announcement extends U.S. tariffs to nearly all imported Chinese products. China on Friday vowed to fight back against Trump's decision, a move that ended a month-long trade truce. We'll look at activities on the stock market after this break. Please stay tuned. A total turnover of 280.695 million shares worth 1.4 billion naira in 3,314 deals were traded by investors as market opened for a new week today. 18 equities appreciated in price today, 12 equities depreciated, while 11 equities remained unchanged, and consequently the all-share index closed at 0.14% higher, while market capitalization also gained about 19 billion naira from previous session to close at 13.483 trillion naira. The market drivers are led by 2 of the most capitalized stocks on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Dangote Flour and of course MTN Nigeria. Both equities did not fare so well for the whole of last week, but now we see them starting the new week with a good show. Both equities appreciated by 1 naira 85 kobo and 1 naira 25 kobo respectively. And when we move on, we see Cement Company of Northern Nigeria as well as NCR Nigeria PLC also recorded significant gains, and trading in the financial services sector didn't quite hit the mark today. Equities like EcoBank Transnational and Dangote Sugar, that of the consumer goods sector. And moving on, we see First Bank of Nigeria Holdings as well as the NPF Microfinance Bank PLC. They were the 4 with the lowest share prices at the end of trading today. And just before, yes, on the global scene, we see that from this chart, you actually do get a good idea of what the US, China, and Japan, South Korea trade wars are doing to the global economy. All three stocks, we see FTSE, Dow Jones and Nikkei, all slipped into the reds at the end of trading today. And that's it on the stock market for today. It's back to you, Aneta.
Thanks for that, Oye. Not so impressive figures there, and it's even worse in Libya, where no fewer than 43 people have died following a drone airstrike by Eastern Libyan forces on the southern Libya town of Mosul. Authorities in the state say about 51 others were also wounded in the attack. The Eastern Libyan National Army Force, LNA, forces loyal to Khalifa Haftar, confirmed the strike late on Sunday on the town. In a statement, the LNA denied targeting any civilians, but said its strike had targeted Chadian opposition fighters. The LNA had at the start of the year taken Mosul as part of an offensive to control the oil-producing south. It later moved out to concentrate forces north, where it has been trying to take the capital, Tripoli, in a 4-month campaign. Ugandan researchers have launched an Ebola vaccine trial in the western part of the country, neighboring the Democratic Republic of Congo. The trial will take about 2 years and will target 800 individuals, namely health workers and frontline workers. It's hoped the operation will provide key information about the immune response and safety of the vaccine. This is coming after the disease spread from Congo to Uganda, killing no fewer than 4 people. The outbreak, which has been declared an international concern, has killed over 1,000 people in Congo. Harry Maguire has become the world's most expensive defender after Manchester United signed him for a reported fee of 80 million euros. Maguire becomes the most expensive defender on the planet, with the option of a further 12-month agreement. The England international, who is 26-year-old, was strongly linked with both Manchester clubs over the summer. Speaking about the transfer, Maguire said he has thoroughly enjoyed himself at Leicester and thanked everyone, including his supporters, over the past 2 seasons. He says he's now looking forward to meet his new teammates to get the season started. But it's ending here on News Now. Many thanks for watching. I am Aneta Felix. Bye for now.